go in. How about we do roll call, if that would be helpful?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
All right. Okay. Alyssa Kruger. Alyssa Kruger. Was that a yes for Alyssa? Anna Velasquez. Dan Baldwin.
Here.
Dana Cleary.
Here.
Donna Smith. Here. Elsa Jimenez.
John Drank here representing Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you. Enrique Arola.
Present.
Mayor Oglesby.
Here.
Jonan Blunt. Karen Cussin. Kimberly Craig.
Here.
Supervisor Kosmicki.
Here.
Kurt Shockey.
Here.
Gabriela Chavez.
Here.
Lori Medina.
Here.
Supervisor Alejo. Mike Labar.
Present.
Phyllis Katz.
Here.
Robin McCrae. Rocio Gonzalez. Roxanne Wilson.
Present.
Timothy Heaven.
Here.
And Zulika Boykin. All right, team.
This is Wendy Root Askew. I think I was just put on as Luis Alejo's alternate. I wasn't planning to attend today as the alternate, but I'm happy to fill in if that would be help reach quorum. I'm on the line. I'm just driving, so I won't be able to participate as much as I would like to. But I'm here.
Thank you so much. Team, have we reached a quorum?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So.
All right, I guess I'll take over. Thank you. Yeah, welcome everybody. First items, welcome introductions and announcements. Do we have any?
No, but if anybody wants to just introduce themselves, or we can just go.
Yeah, if anyone wants to do a brief introduction, please consider we have a lot of items here we want to get through. So if you have anything briefly you want to say, go right ahead. Is there any? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 2, additions, modifications to the agenda. Do we have any additions, modifications?
Yes, so we have 3 additions to the agenda. I would like to request moving our HAP board discussion to the top of the agenda before our consent agenda, just so we can get through that big, hefty part of the presentation, and to add our YHDP contract for $1.6 million. We want to add this discussion to our COC update. And then Keishla had their hand raised.
So just to be clear again, move up HHAP to the top. What was the item you wanted to add? I was getting my notes open.
It's okay. YHDP contract, and I'd like to put it under our Continuum of Care update.
Alrighty. And then, as mentioned, we have Keishla Lopez has her hand raised. Go ahead, Keishla.
Hi there, Keishla Lopez with the City of Salinas. I would like to add something to the consent agenda. The City of Salinas has the state ESG allocation recommendations that we need to run by Leadership Council for approval.
Is it kosher to add that to the consent or to add to regular, considering
Perfect. Thanks.
we don't necessarily have
That
it
I'm
in
not
front of
sure.
us?
I would need to seek your guys'
I only need one
guidance on
signature
where it's
on these.
appropriate.
Oh, I forget about the.
Does staff have thoughts on that?
I would say not to put it on consent and have it presented to the leadership.
Yes,
council.
even a brief presentation. Yeah, that's the safest way to go, I think. Okay, and then
We will need approval to move forward.
you'll need approval to move forward on the items.
Correct.
A motion
Yeah.
for approval?
Wait.
Wait, hold on, please. We need to put it on the agenda first. And Luis Alejo, you have your hand raised, and Luis, if you want to take over as chair, you can certainly do that as well. But go ahead. Mike Navarro first, so, and then we'll come to Luis. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I apologize if I missed the item, Chair, but I just wanted to extend my great thanks from the City of King to the county, the COC, and all the providers for their help on helping us be awarded over $6.4 million for our Encampment Resolution Fund. And thank you so much, Roxanne. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. And Luis, Supervisor Alejo, you have your
So
hand
there was
raised?
a question to Keisla Lopez for the City of Salinas. What is this? Because this, we have the agenda review, and is this the funding stream that the City of Salinas manages? Because it'd be nice to get more information and a staff report to vote on it if there's going to be some recommendations of how that money gets spent, rather than adding it last minute on this agenda. Could you just elaborate on what the item is? Was it ESG?
Sure. So, correct, Supervisor Luis Alejo. It is the state ESG allocation for the COC, and the City of Salinas is currently administering these grant funds. And so we did a NOFA that was released through the coalition as a public notice, and we completed our rating and ranking panel. We received our recommendations from that panel, and so we would like to present it to the leadership committee today to discuss the recommendations. In order for us to move forward with the applying with the state, we need the approval on those recommendations.
Okay.
And the timeline is very brief because it will be released within the next month.
Okay, so is this money? Is this just an application, or is this the recommended how funding that you have received will be spent?
It is a recommendation for an application we will submit, and the agencies in which we will submit with.
Okay, got it. Colin, I'm more comfortable with that because I know that what happens is some of these funding streams, some are managed by the Continuum of Care. Some are ESG is managed by the City of Salinas, and we're grateful for them stepping up several years ago to do that. But sometimes when they get the funding, they have to get like an okay from this body, but that's not where they're at. So I'm more comfortable if it's just an application at this point that they're going to be submitting. Then I'm more comfortable. But usually, talking to Katrina, if we could just get notice, because we do have an agenda review before this meeting, we just like to get that more advanced notice. But I know there's a short timeline for this time around, so I feel I feel okay putting it on for today as an added item.
Great, appreciate that, Supervisor. Mayor Lobar, you had your hand raised still. Did you have something else?
No, I apologize. I'll take.
No worries, thank you. So I believe we have to take a vote to add those to the agenda, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong. The two items, we can obviously move up the HHAP to the top. We have to take a vote as well, right, to add those items?
Let's just do it for the record. It's better that we do it that way.
Let's do that. So we get a roll call vote, please.
Oh, roll call vote. Okay,
I think to make it easier, all we need is a motion, a second call, and then all of us just say aye.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, and Luis, again, if you want to chair, go ahead. But yeah, I'll take a motion for now to add those two items that were requested to the agenda. That would be adding the wide HDP contracts under Continuum of Care and adding consent, or not adding consent, the Salinas allocation recommendation. We have a motion. We have a second.
Motion, and I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah, I guess we don't need to roll call. I'm just used to the Brown Act rules here. Okay, so that would take us to public comments not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments on items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we would move on to our consent agenda. And actually, the HHAP we wanted to do before consent. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have our modified agenda here now. Just let me know where you guys want to drop in the city of Salinas in here. So this would be the beginning of our agenda, and then we have the second part of our agenda right here. So I did put it at the very end in the event we did approve it. So if that works for you all, I think we'd have to do it right before closed session.
Unless I'm hearing objections, that's fine with me. Anybody have any other strong feelings on it?
Alrighty.
All right.
So we could move on to our HAP 4 update. So I'll just go fairly quickly through this as our read-ahead packet was pretty hefty. So there were 5 categories of eligible activities, and due to the amount of funding requests, the rank and review panel established a minimum threshold of 85 points in order to fund high-ranking projects. Projects in permanent supportive housing and shelter improvements were disqualified as they did not meet the 85-point threshold. These funds were then moved to other categories. Permanent supportive housing went to rapid rehousing, alongside with the balance of operating subsidies, and the total allocation for shelter improvements went to interim shelters. So this is how it all laid out. It's all in your guys' read-ahead packet as well. There was a youth set-aside requirement set by the state. 2 projects submitted for that bucket, totaling to $462,000. So there was an over-ask right there. And then for San Benito County, we had an allocation of $332,000. San Benito's allocation was designated to San Benito County Serving Project and is a local decision and not a state requirement. San Benito County's application included both rapid rehousing for all populations and then their youth portion of $165,000. Our rank and review panel met on March 29th to do their orientation. The panelists consist of 2 County of Monterey staff members, 2 lived experience board members, housing authority staff, and a City of Monterey staff. 3 of the 6 panelists are seated on the Leadership Council. So this was a highly competitive competition. 18 applications were received, 5 were removed as incomplete because they were missing mandatory attachments, and 13 applications moved forward in the ranking process with our panelists. So after much deliberation, you'll see on your screen the final recommendation from the rank and review panel. So Interim was fully funded for their Sandy Shores project under operating subsidies. Our Santa Cruz Tiny Home Village was reduced by $90,000. Community Human Services Youth Program was reduced by $97,000, and their CHS's rapid rehousing was reduced by $37,000. DST was reduced by $380,000, and San Benito County's rapid rehousing project was reduced by $167,000, but was fully funded in their use of set aside. So I just want to say apologies on my read ahead packet. I did miss San Benito's allocation in the allocation section by mistake, but this is accurate. The categories are accurate. So again, I just want to reiterate, this is a very highly competitive competition, and we had over subscriptions of $2.8 million. Does anybody have any questions before I move forward? I thought I saw a hand raised. Okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Enrique.
Yeah, Trina, do you mind again sharing with us what the recommendation for San Benito County?
I'm sorry, what, the what for San Benito County?
If you could repeat again the recommendation for San Benito County.
So the recommendation for San Benito County was to fully fund your youth rapid rehousing to meet the youth spend down of there. There was an oversubscription for rapid rehousing for $1.8 million. So things had to get cut, and we had to look at thresholds and strengthening the strength of each application. So that's where we're at right now. There was considerations of how funds were previously spent by prior HAP recipients, and those were some of the considerations that went into the allocations that you see here.
Okay, just the reason that I asked is because I thought I heard you say that the rapid housing was reduced in half and the youth portion was fully funded. But from what I understand, the youth portion was actually fully funded and no rapid rehousing was awarded from the regular allocation of $332,000.
Right. So you would see here that your application was a combined application for $300 and some odd $1,000, and it was split between regular rapid rehousing for all populations and then your youth rapid rehousing. So the youth rapid rehousing is recommended to be fully funded.
One last question. Did any other organization receive any funds to serve San Benito County community?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Katrina, I had a follow-up on that. So how does, because San Benito is getting $165,000 out of $2.25 million, I mean, you take like population into account, you get, proportions of the award sort of thing, because I have to go and explain this, to my board, and obviously Enrique's asked some questions for a reason here, that we're getting, it seems like a fairly small portion of this.
So again, the San Benito Monterey County split is something that we do locally. It's not really a policy in place, and I think that is a discussion for us to have and put a policy in place. And it's proportionally split by our point in time. So one, we had to go by 2022 numbers because 2024 numbers weren't out yet, and then we just have to look at the strength of each application. And because there was an oversubscription of $1.8 million, some projects had to get cut. Almost every application, with the exception of one, was cut.
Got it. Thank you. Supervisor Alejo?
I want to speak to that. Maybe Roxanne could help me. But I thought our practice has been to be fair to San Benito County, because the bulk of the money comes to Monterey. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 85% based on the point in time count. But based on the point in time for San Benito, we've always kind of set that money aside so that they get their fair share of funding. And just because we're all oversubscribed, I think I want to continue to follow that practice where their percentage does get set aside, not just on the youth homelessness, but the rapid rehousing or whatever other needs there are in San Benito County. If we historically, from my understanding, since I've been on this leadership council board, I've always saw those numbers fairly allocated that way, and I'm hoping we're not moving away from that just because we're oversubscribed by our applications that were submitted. Roxanne, can you enlighten us? Because I want to make sure that San Benito gets their fair share, because they do get a much smaller number, obviously, because of the point in time and count and population. But I don't want this to be the first time that they're getting much less. Not even, I don't know what that percentage is, but I knew somewhere around like 15% that they should be getting their full allocation.
You are correct. It all started with the HEAP funding that came out, I think, around 2018. But Katrina is also correct. It was never an established policy by the board. I do support the policy, but it is not technically a policy. But we have done it in practice for the past 5 years.
Yeah, and so to your concern, Enrique and Colin, I would just say that if that's the case, I like to see what those numbers are, and making sure that San Benito is getting their fair share, because you guys obviously have needs, and there's a lot of work that has happened there over the years, and I don't want Monterey County pulling in what should fairly go to your county.
Right.
Thank you, Supervisor Alejo. That's one of the things that I was thinking about. I think in the past, for the prior 3 rounds, we've been getting pretty much the allocation that has been set forth. I understand that this round there was another organization that did apply, but they didn't get funded for part of that portion. So just looking at the big picture, it would be good to just to be fair all across. And it doesn't have to be San Benito County as a recipient, other organizations, but having something set, I think, benefits the entire region.
We like to other board members as well, right? Because our continuum of care is both counties, and that's why I always thought historically it was a good practice to making sure that what was due to San Benito goes to San Benito. And I hate to change from that. I know some work has gone into this allocation, but if we're going to move away from what staff has presented here, I think we need to hear from other members about how we feel about San Benito getting what they're owed.
Appreciate that. Roxanne has her hand. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Roxanne had her hand up first. I didn't even raise my hand, so.
I hate to be in your position, Katrina. Been there before. My recommendation, if the Leadership Council would take this into consideration, is that maybe we look at unspent funds in previous rounds, and then we can also make a motion for us to set a standard, a policy today that in the future we will continue to stick to the practice.
Before you go to sorry, Mr. Chair, but maybe Katrina could answer that if there is those dollars available to make San Benito whole for this round.
So we should talk about that. There is some slides coming up to do so. I just would also really like to take into consideration, are we then not asking San Benito to apply? And then when they rank, are we not taking that into consideration for other projects that are ranking higher? So if we're going to have the allocation, if we're going to set the policy for an allocation, which I'm not against, then do they need to even go through the application process and compete? Because then it's kind of a waste of time for them and for us or the panel and everyone to review if it's a shoo-in.
Well, I think a good policy is to do, and maybe today making that clear, because the practice has been setting that money aside, and then I think we haven't had a problem where there isn't enough applications from San Benito County, and that's where I think our continuum of care, our staff need to work with Enrique to make sure that nonprofits or the county or whoever's focusing on efforts there know that the money's available and that they need to apply by the deadlines, so that there will be people looking to put that money to use in that county.
Appreciate that. Mayor Labar?
I just want to concur with Supervisor Alejo. I've always operated under the assumption that we are taking a percentage off the top for San Benito because smaller area, and for me, those are preventative dollars. They're doing good work there, and it is a small amount ultimately. So I would like to find a way to make all that happen and codify that in language so it's clear going out. Reduction in any kind of revenue right now could be more damaging than just solving a short-term fiscal issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Lori Medina?
Yes, thank you. And my comments are more of a question, a clarifying question, because my understanding is that San Benito does have an allocation. So I guess I'm looking for clarity of what the problem is that we're trying to solve. If it is that San Benito's share isn't adequate, I'd like to hear more about that. If it is that the allocation they're getting isn't sufficient to meet their needs.
Does anybody want to speak to that? Otherwise, I'll basically just say yes. That's basically the issue, is that the allocation is not in line with the percentage of, the point in time and all that. That's essentially what it is. And we have the same needs that you guys all have. I mean, it's these issues don't have borders, and so we're dealing with all the same issues. And we don't solve our issues, and those issues are going to trickle over to Monterey County and elsewhere. So. Anybody else on that?
Yes. So just hypothetically speaking, if it's $2.25 million, and if we're talking about 15%, I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but if they would be getting more, close to $350,000 rather than $165,000.
Basically, what our application was.
Their application was $332,000, and that was their allocation. They asked for their full allocation. And again, it is a local decision that we've made, and it's not a state requirement, and it's not policy. So I'm here saying that we should make it policy, because this is the recommendation that has come forth from our rank and review panelists. So I'm definitely here for it. I see lots of questions up. I think it was Roxanne, then Phyllis, then Tim, then Mayor Oglesby, and then Amy.
Well, I think Phyllis was first, but I'll take the reins on that. Phyllis, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like to ask a question as to whether or not there's some time constraint such that this has to be approved today by the Continuum of Care. And second of all, I would like to say that I would like to see San Benito County continue to apply, and because I think it's important that there be somebody that all the applications be reviewed for completeness, and to make sure that there's an appropriate bidding opportunity for other agencies that want to expand or start up in San Benito County. Thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis. Roxanne?
Yes, I was actually just going to say the same thing, is while we're making this policy, I think it would be wise for us to discuss what happens when other people compete against San Benito County. So that's just something that we need to take into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks. Tim, Pevin?
Yeah, I was just going to basically concur that I think we do need to make it a policy to allocate San Benito with its necessary funding. That way there's no confusion.
Appreciate that. Amy Price?
Are we talking, I'm sorry, I'm with Community Homeless Solutions. I'm their new Director of Development. I'm here for Greg Baker today. Are we talking about just HHAP Round 4, or are we talking about across the board? For example, we just submitted an application for HCD ESG money, and we asked for more than what would be the proportional breakdown based on pit count. And we did that deliberately because none of that money had come into San Benito County for a few years. And when we were planning this application and talking with partners, we decided to go big or go home. So now I'm going to feel terrible if I'm sitting in my very first meeting and they decide to cap it off at a fair percentage, which tips well for HHAP, but is going to effectively negate our impact on the ESG. So I'm just curious if you're talking about HHAP or all funding.
I think when it comes
relatively
to
new.
Sorry.
So go ahead.
I think when it comes to Continuum of Care funding, we're talking about it across the board. But specifically for HAP today, being this is the first time San Benito County did not get their full allocation, or recommended for their full allocation. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Anything further, Amy?
guess a little bit, and I sound terrible, I can imagine, but that's my job to advocate for this.
Right, and it's our job to advocate for ours as well.
I would hate to see a policy put into place. I mean, it would be like if we said, okay, everybody's going to tear up their IOUs, and I'm tearing up $1 million in IOUs, and everybody else is tearing up $2 worth. That kind of would suck. So I'm thinking about it in big picture, maybe addressing the HHAP right now, but maybe taking a little more time later to talk about, if we're going to put this policy in place and if there's going to be any grandfathering in for one grant cycle to potentially, reset some of these. Don't know, just thinking out loud. Forgive me.
Thank you. And then Ian Oglesby.
Thank you. I just wanted to chime in. I think the last speaker said it perfectly. I don't think we can solve it all today. I definitely don't think we can have a new policy today. I do support San Benito County and the way Supervisor Alejo's looking at it. But if we're talking about how do we go forward with some type of standard policy, well, then that has to be down the line. But I do think it should be some type of minimum. And then if there's more applicants from the county, going for that minimum that we're setting aside, then that's a discussion to have later when we have those extra applicants. But right now, I do think you guys should get a little bit more money.
Thank you. Roxanne? Oh, sorry, Luis. I saw you going. Roxanne, and we'll come to Luis.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention in this round there was a competitor of San Benito County, so that was one of the things that why I brought up that we need to talk about that if we were going to make the decision today. But also something for the board to consider is this is the fourth round of HHAP that we're talking about. There's a lot of historical information that we're not talking about, like agencies' ability to spend down, do reporting. Those are the types of things that were taken into consideration when we were ranking. So I just feel like that is a large conversation and it is a huge policy discussion. So, I don't know if this is the right platform to talk about that, but we certainly need to when we're taking into consideration what type of policies we want to roll out.
Great, Luis Alejo.
Yes. Well, obviously, I don't know what our timeline is, but I think this does need to be reworked, and we do need the policy. And the reason I say that is for good governance of this. The collaboration that we've had in the COC has been intentional. There's a lot more votes on the COC from the Monterey County side than the San Benito County side. That's why I'm very cognizant of being fair to our partners from that county. And that's why if a policy sets aside that money, and just like grantees within Monterey County, if they don't spend it, it gets reallocated later as time goes on. But the first dib should always be San Benito County providers. And if they don't apply, then that's another thing, right? Then if they didn't apply for that funding, then it could be reallocated. But the first opportunity to obtain that money and put it to use should be providers serving that county. And so the question for Katrina is, do we have time? Because San Benito did apply for its almost for its full allocation. I think it would have been $337,500. So if we can make that application whole, then it makes us rework the numbers for the Monterey County side. And if that could be done and bring this back at another meeting, it would allow us to rework those numbers rather than doing it on the fly right now. Thank you. But Katrina, what's the deadline though to have to submit this?
We don't have a deadline, but we would like to get these funds out as it's been sitting in our bank account for quite some time. So, but we can reconvene with our rank and review panel and see how we would like to do this. Yeah.
Mayor Oglesby, do you have your hand up, or is that inadvertent?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'll take it down.
Sorry about that. And then Elaine Coligny.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I wonder if it would make sense to move question. The ranking review panel did a lot of work on these recommendations, and there are a couple of just factual observations I want to share. At the moment, San Benito County is behind on expending of earlier HAP. So there is HAP money from previous rounds to potentially be allocated. So there might be administrative ways to address this that don't necessarily involve sending ranking review back to work and waiting till June to award these funds. There is send down pressure on these funds from the state. And your COC is behind on your send down on some of your HAP. So I'm concerned as to whether that is in the best interest of the COC to defer awarding the funds. And I think if Katrina finishes her presentation on some other things that came up in this process, there may be other options for addressing the allocation to San Benito without sort of sending it back to the drawing board. I mean, you all may still decide to send it back to the drawing board, but it might be worth hearing out all the things that staff would like the council to consider.
Thank you, Enrique Ariola.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a quick clarification on the spend down. HAP 2 is tied to a home key project that will be used for operational funding. That home key project is still under development and it's expected to be completed at the end of the year. Once it's done, we will draw down from HAP 2 to utilize it for that operation. So at the moment, you're absolutely right. There's a spend down for that, but I could tell you that we will spend out before the expenditure date. I believe it's about May of next year. I'd also proposed before to the prior director to utilize, to do a scope mod and utilize HHAP 2 for rapid rehousing and for HHAP 3 apply for that project, and that wasn't necessarily approved at that point. So I've done certain measures to try to mitigate that, but at the moment HHAP 2 is you're right, and it has to do because of that. It's tied to a different project.
Thanks, Enrique. We have a lot on the table here. Roxanne, did you put your hand? I was going to throw out some options just to move us forward here. At some point, we got to move forward at some point here.
Colin, we got a meeting next month scheduled for May 22nd. I would suggest that we rework this, get a policy, bring it back, ensure that San Benito gets its fair share, and that we work those numbers for Monterey County and bring this back for consideration on May 22nd, which we already have on calendar.
I appreciate that. And do we necessarily have to send this back to the rank and review panel? If we don't need to do extra work, and we might override something anyway if they disagree with us. So I don't know if their thoughts on that, or we just bring this back in May.
It could be a bit, but obviously, if we're making San Benito County whole, we'd have to do the reductions. It could be done proportionately to all the grantees by splitting that amount, which is I think another $170,000 that would have to be reduced from those allocations you see on the screen.
So would there be a motion to send it back then to them and just give them the directive that the San Benito's made whole and to basically figure out the rest?
I would leave it to, I think in a motion we can send it to staff to write some recommendations, whether they want to send it back to that rank and review committee, that's up to them. But otherwise, we might just proportionally reduce all those awards amount to by that amount that needs to go to San Benito County.
Appreciate that. And I have Elaine again, hand raised. We can't hear you, Elaine. You're on mute. You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Again, and I apologize. I'm participating from the East Coast, and I'm going to need to cut out. But I would recommend that you hear out all of the staff's ideas and options, because I don't know that you need to send this back to the review, and I do think you have administrative options to address the concerns raised here to support San Benito County that don't necessarily, send the work of the ranking review committee back for revision. There are administrative fixes. There are additional
Okay.
funds.
Thank you for that, Enrique.
So it's worth feeling about.
Okay, Enrique Arreola.
I'm sorry, I just forgot to put my hand down.
Okay, can I entertain a motion then, please?
Yes, Colin, I'd make a motion that we table this for today and direct staff to bring back some modifications to this proposal, but making San Benito County whole on its fair share, and also to bring a policy that we could vote on next month as well that will ensure San Benito County will have a set aside for its money first, unless it doesn't apply, unless it doesn't apply. Thank you.
And a second?
Can I alternate that motion? I'm sorry.
I think we need a second first, no? And then discussion? Or Luis Alejo, I guess, are you? Okay, go ahead, Roxanne.
I am interested in seeing what those administrative changes that the coalition and Elaine have come up with to try to help San Benito whole before we make a motion on this one. Because I do feel like there's a lot of money tied in home keys, and we all know what's going on with home keys in the Monterey County side, and we could possibly make some decisions there.
But
discussion further.
Roxanne, you're making us make a decision on this round based on whatever unused funding that we've already allocated, and will come back to us at some point. But I hate to say, with this round of funding, we're going to take off the top money that should have gone to San Benito County and already committed to Monterey County. I think that's unfair to them.
Any further discussion? We have motion on the table. All those in favor, please say aye.
Well, who was the second? I'm sorry.
Mike Labar.
No, I was saying aye.
Yeah, no, and I was answering her. She asked who the second was, and it might be better to do a roll call vote on this actually now that I'm thinking it through. So let's have a roll call vote, please.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could clarify the motion, if you could, just because I'm unclear on which.
The motion would be to table this item and bring it back on May 22nd at our next scheduled meeting, and staff will bring recommendations to how to address these concerns and make modifications to the allocations, but keeping San Benito County whole, and to also bring back a policy that in future allocations we will do a set aside for San Benito County unless they do not apply for that funding.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a first and a second. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Alyssa Cougar.
Abstention.
Dan Baldwin.
Aye.
Dana Clary. Donna Smith. Aye. Elsa Jimenez.
Aye.
Enrique Aurora.
Aren't we all? Is almost everybody on here applicants in some sense? So do I have to recuse myself? We're not going to have the votes for. We don't even barely have quorum. So can I get clarification as well?
1, 2, 3. We have like over 15.
Oh, we have more now. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Do I have to recuse myself as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I recuse.
Gabriela Chavez.
I abstain.
Lori Medina.
I'm going to abstain.
Mayor Labar.
Aye.
Phyllis Katz,
Aye.
Supervisor Alejo,
Aye.
Roxanne Wilson,
Recuse.
Tim Heaven,
Aye.
Julika Boykin.
Abstain.
Okay. Do we have a count team? I think we're good. Nobody said no. Other abstentions, right?
Yeah, and hopefully with the policy, we'll avoid this in the future. We haven't come to this point because we've always kind of done it fairly like that. This is the first time that we did it, and it put us in this predicament.
Okay, so we can move forward on this one, and we'll come back and on our next meeting. Okay, so due to the shortage of funds in the prospective categories, it's the recommendation of the Rank and Review panel to consider prioritizing projects that scored 90 or higher in our HAP round 5 competition. So this is something to consider, and you guys can choose how you guys would like to do this. I have some recommendations. So we would like the Leadership Council to consider applicants scoring 90 points or higher during this current competition for the HAP 5. We could think about they do not need to submit a new application. Their existing scores will be considered alongside new applicants. Or alternatively, these high-scoring applicants may choose to reapply with the added benefit of maybe receiving a bonus point, or the funds could be fully reserved for these high-scoring applicants, allowing them to bypass the application process, but also consider present funding allocations and new project submissions. We'd like to open this for discussion.
I had a question first of all. I just realized do we have to legally do public comment on that last item? I apologize for this. Or is this all wrapped into the same item?
It's all right. I was going to take a vote on everything at the end, but we can do this by section. There are 3 considerations within this one funding.
Got it. Okay, I just want to make sure because we took a vote. So okay, go ahead though. I apologize.
So we took a vote on like this portion of it, right. And re-looking at this. I would like us to consider this is a recommendation from our Rank and Review panel and staff to consider high-ranking applicants that could not go against these guys because there was not enough funding to make these projects even work. So, looking at the people who ranked high, but there was not enough funding to give them, would we like to consider, or we just move on? So these are the 2 organizations, Casa de Noche Buena and City of Salinas' motel program. And these are some recommendations for you guys to ponder.
May I add a comment, please?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Roxanne.
To answer your question, Supervisor, it's not Brown acted, but I do have a preference if we can consider that only the council members may, and like a Brown Act meeting, you open it up for public comment. I think it gets a little confusing when non-council members are a part of the deliberations.
Thank you. Do we have any other thoughts, questions, comments on the recommendations? Phyllis Katz.
So I guess I would maybe like some clarification. Well, in the past, it seems that there has been a project that has needed just a little more funding in order to make it go, or in order to get matching grants. And I'm wondering if we determine now that we're not going to do a new application process for this next round of funding, are we tying our hands? And maybe there would be a reason to be able to have that flexibility and to be able to look at other projects. Thank you.
Staff?
I mean, it's to your guys' pleasure what you guys would like us to do.
Well, I'll wait till you get called on, Colin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait till what, Luis?
Well, I wanted to speak next. I just wanted to make sure I'm not stepping on you as chair. But I just to get clarity on this recommendation, somebody scored 90 or higher on a previous competition. So now they don't need to apply on a new application. That it just what's the purpose of this? Because it's always good in new rounds of allocations that we look at previous projects that we funded and make a determination whether we want to continue to fund them or not. So when I'm seeing something that says you don't need you don't need to reapply, why are we moving away from what we previously have done?
Right. So also in previous HAP rounds, we didn't even do some RFPs and had just set aside funds straight ahead. So we were just giving the chance for these organizations that scored high, but could not make it in here. So they couldn't make it. We have, this organization 90.7, but they couldn't rank. They couldn't. There was not enough funding for them. So we want to give these people, these applicants a chance. I mean, we don't have to. It's just a recommendation.
Yeah, but it shows that there's $1.3 million unallocated or requested amount. That's the amount they requested, and we're saying they just score high, but then they don't have to reapply. I'm not understanding what this recommendation entails. Are we writing some money out of the amount they requested? It's not clear on these slides.
Yeah, so it could be a mixture of these recommendations. It could be, full on. We say they don't apply, their existing scores stand, but they still rank against new applicants. Or they have to reapply, but they might get a bonus point. Or we set the funds aside, like we've done for other organizations.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor?
It's still unclear to me. And Katrina, I would suggest this is where we should be getting clarity on this, because if I don't understand it, I know a lot of other members don't understand it. And our agenda review, that's what when Colin and I sit, we could go over these kind of things, because we didn't go over any of this during our agenda review.
Roxanne?
Yes, sir.
I do understand that these applications are really onerous for nonprofits to have to consistently reapply. If I may, I would like to make a motion for item 1 that they could repurpose their existing application and use that existing application to compete against new applications. I think it's fair, and it just reduces the administrative burden. So I do kind of see where the coalition and their team is going with this. And I just I am always paying attention to the administrative burden that the organizations have to go through these processes. So that would be the recommendation or the motion I put on the table.
We have a motion, we have a second, and we have hands raised. We can come back for discussion. We have a second on the motion. I'm not hearing a second. Mayor Labar, go ahead. Did I hear something? Go ahead, Supervisor.
I'll second it, Roxanne. If you believe this helps, if it scored high, it helps them from resubmitting everything all over again. If that's the purpose, that's clear for me. But I just want to make sure that's the intended purpose here. Thank you.
Appreciate that clarity, Supervisor. Mayor Labar?
That sounds good. The only thing I would suggest is a time limit on how many times that application could be used? Is it once every 2 years, once every 3 years? It just can't be open-ended. So if you would consider an amendment, a current application will last 3 years. That would be all.
Roxanne, are you open to an amendment of that sort?
I would actually just recommend that it's for the 5th round, because things change, budgets change after a year easily.
Great.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. We have that. Mayor LaBar, anything else? Your hand raised. Otherwise, I'll move on to Enrique Arreola. Enrique?
Thank you very much. When I look at open competitions, I look at organizations in need of funding, and I think that the fairest thing to do is that it's open to everyone, even for existing agencies that score 85, 80, 90, 95 to all open and compete against each other. I get the administrative burden, but it's the same for all applications, all agencies, the administrative burden. So I don't know, for me, something's not clicking on this, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be supporting that.
Z. Boykin?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding, and then I got a little comment. So anybody who applied for the HAP 4, they got a 90. Their application, it didn't get funded, but when HAP 5 comes out, you want them to be able to repurpose that slightly and apply for the HAP 5 funds, but with a slight advantage, I guess, over the applications that are coming in that are new. Is that kind of what you're saying?
To clarify my vote, if I may, Supervisor?
Yes, of course. And Katrina could have stepped in as well, but go ahead, Roxanne.
What Zulika is that it's just because they did score really high, and it's just our lack of funding that made it to where they're unable to receive funding. So it is a slight advantage to the fact that they don't have to resubmit the application. However, it is still competitive against new incoming applicants.
So, for example, if the housing authority sent in an application and you already had 5 people that scored higher than a 90, based on the previous round, more than likely they're gonna keep that 90 score or have the ability to go up. So then, if just let's say the housing authority got a 90, they wouldn't get funded. The previous application would get funded, and then whenever it was another round or another opportunity, then the housing authority would have the position as to be able to repurpose the application for that future funding. That's basically it.
I'm only asking for this specific round for these 2 applicants that met and exceeded the minimum threshold.
Okay, I thought this something. I was kind of thinking this was something you was doing consistently. So you just want to not hold a spot, but let these 2 repurpose and submit their same application for HAP 5 and retain their score of the 90.7 or whatever to go against whatever new applications come in?
That is the recommendation, yes.
Okay. Now, one question, and then I'm through. Do they have an opportunity for their score to increase, or will it stay the score that it is at this time?
So that would be up to you all. I was, that it could just exist, or they would go and reapply and potentially receive a bonus point. What I'm hearing is none of that. It's just to repurpose the current application for round 5 with no additional benefit. They just repurpose.
Okay, because I don't know how much you're anticipating for round 5, but if you're going to give any type of special consideration to these 2 applications, I think it will be better to let the application stand and maybe give them a bonus point, because they could have been funded, but the funding was the issue for the HAP 4 round. And then everybody else, whoever submits an application, just start, from scratch to see whatever their points are. So, for example, if you gave them an extra, I don't know, 10 or 5 points, each one of them automatically have a 95. All the new people coming in, you score them. Maybe somebody have 100, maybe somebody have 89 or whatever, but that'll put them in the mix to be able to be funded. And then that way, I guess to me, it makes your process have a little more integrity instead of just kind of keeping them, because it's almost like you're already allocating the money to them depending on how you do it. So bonus points would be something that I think would be better. But whatever the consensus of the body is. Thank you.
Amy Price?
I honestly think that I agree completely with the coalition's recommendation here. These are so close together. I mean, we're just talking about HHAP 4 and 5. And, you know, anybody could pull their high-scoring one and resubmit it and maybe secure an extra couple of points, or they could just let it ride. It does seem very considerate, and it doesn't seem like it compromises anything.
Enrique?
So I thank you, Roxanne. It makes more sense now. I didn't realize that these organizations were not recommended. So my apologies. So that to me makes a little bit more sense. But I do have a question, Katrina. So given that the requests for these two organizations are 1.2 million, and let's say that the next round happens to be, throw a number, 4 million. So that means what will be procured is 2.8 million of the total allocation to the region, correct?
But it's not, I'm sorry, what I think I heard you say is that we'd be setting aside 1.2 million for these projects. They would still rank and be allocated according to all the applications that come in. We're not holding these funds for them. And it might be just the same as here where, you know, we have, you know, organizations, DST was reduced by $387,000. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it still could happen. So
I get it.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we have a motion on the table. We have a motion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Please speak up. Motion passes. Staff, and you have a further item on that agenda item?
I do. Okay, so before moving on completely from this, we did give the opportunity for applicants to appeal their initial decisions on April 18th. 3 appeals were submitted, and on April 19th, the appeals committee convened to address the appeals received. This committee was comprised of 3 leadership council members, one of which served on the rank and review panel. So the organization that appealed was BTC. The details in and around this can be found in your read-ahead packet. And the appeals committee unanimously upheld the decisions of the rank and review panel, denying BTC's appeals. But although VTC's Light Fighter project was not recommended for funding through the local competition and their appeal was denied, through further review of the application, the appeals letter, and meeting with VTC for the appeals, it became very clear to the appeals committee that the funds that were being requested will support the expansion of permanent supportive housing for homeless veterans in our continuum of care, which is a very strategic and desired outcome. This was not so apparent in their application, and the further review helped address administrative concerns and clarify that this was expansion. Therefore, staff's recommendation for the Leadership Council is to consider funding Light Fighter Village through VTC for $300,000 outside of our HAP competition, contingent upon a clean audit, as it significantly expands our COC capacity and aligns with our community priorities and our Lead Me Home objectives. So, some options to consider. We have 3 viable options to maximize current unallocated funds that can be used to increase the bed capacity of our COC. So we have our HAP interest that mandates reinvestment into eligible activities. We can reallocate unspent HAP funds from other contracts that are behind in spend down, or we can pre-approve HAP funding like we have done in prior rounds. So right now, as of March, we have $331,000 in our HAP interest funds from rounds 1 through 4. $92,000 was previously awarded in April of 2023 to Pajaro Relief, but has yet to be spent down. The contract originally expired in December of 23, but was extended by my predecessors prior to their exit. But no activity has been made on this contract with 2 months to spend down that $92,000. So I'm open for discussion, questions, and concerns.
Do we have questions or comments? Go ahead, Roxanne.
Always. A question for you, Katrina. I think it would be helpful, and I'm sorry to do this to you last minute, but I think it would be helpful for the council to understand your HHAP expenditure requirements, because compared to Supervisor Alejo had mentioned earlier, it's not fair to reallocate funding, but if there are programs that are behind and it's putting you guys at risk because you're not going to meet your expenditure requirements, I think that's important for the council to know.
Right. So for our HAP 1, our requirement to spend down is June 2025. So we have 1 more year to spend that down. That includes all of our interest. Interest has to go back into the originating eligible activities for that previous round, for that round. So then for HAP round 2 and 3, expenditure date is 2026, and round 4 is 27. Does that answer your question, Roxanne?
I don't know if you, this is really a question, I really don't know. Not a leading question. If for ERF, we had to do like a 50% expenditure, we had a 50% expenditure deadline after the first year. I don't know if that is a requirement of HAP.
No, not for 1 through 3, and I have not delved into those logistics of 4 or 5 yet.
Okay.
Well, 5's not awarded, so.
Supervisor Alejo?
Yeah, I think part of our job is to actually be monitoring the expenditures of these different rounds of this type of funding. And as we get closer to a deadline to reallocate, if that grantee is not using them, we've done that in the past with other rounds of funding. So I never said that that's not what we do. It's when we allocate money from the beginning where we already take from our neighboring county. But obviously our role is to provide oversight, and it's, I think, incumbent upon our team to circle in with those grantees when they're not spending the money. And sometimes there is real good reasons why, as Enrique just spent most of their money in round 2 of HAP is going to their hotel conversion, and it's under construction right now. So every grantee might be in a little different situation, but obviously the interest, it gives us $300,000 to be able to meet this need for VTC, and obviously if the county of Monterey has not spent the $92,000 for that Pajaro, I think we should circle in. That might be Lori or Roxanne might be able to explain why we haven't utilized those $92,000 additional dollars, or if we think we are going to use them for some of the expense that incurred for some of the residents who were still staying in hotels towards the end.
Yes, I would be happy to explain. We actually, the coalition contracted directly with Central Coast, Cecil. So with Cecil to do rapid rehousing. Coincidentally, around the same time, a lot of other money became available through various funding streams. And I don't know, I'm not a part of the conversations with Cecil, but I think that one of the issues with the spend down is that because the emergency housing vouchers also became available, people didn't necessarily need the rapid rehousing because they got the vouchers.
Right. So Katrina's asking for a way to meet this need for VTC. If we're going to do it, make a decision today, I would first start with those $300,000 in interest money, and then maybe look at clawing back that $92,000 that Cecil did not spend. But it's always good to circle in with those providers first before letting them know, hey, guess what? At the last meeting, we took away that money that was allocated to you. So that would be my suggestion if we're trying to get an answer on this today.
Go ahead, Katrina.
Yes, so we are actively connecting with our service providers on their contracts and requesting for updated projections and budgets and seeing where they're at. I'm really hoping for June, our June board meeting, our June board meeting to have an update to you guys all in black and white on where we're at with our spend downs, to really start preparing ourselves for any reallocation conversations. But with 2 months left down to spend and $92,000 been sitting on the table since April 2023, it's highly concerning, especially when we couldn't fund a permanent housing project. You know, the funds are just sitting there growing interest, and we have to make sure that we spend down at least HHAP 1, which is a significant amount of money right now.
Great. Phyllis Katz?
Can I suggest that by the next meeting, in addition to having talked to the funder to determine whether or not there's a way to spend this down that they have planned, that if they don't have a reasonably good plan in place, that you come back to us with a way of reallocating this that will make sure it gets out to the community where the need is so high. I don't know whether we go back to those entities that applied for HHP 1 funding, or whether we can quickly distribute it so that there's some housing assistance to CAB or to some other agency that can just get it out to the community, because I'm just seeing such huge need, as we all do, I'm sure, and it would be awful to not have that much money spent.
Okay, do we have anything else? Otherwise, we probably want to move on here and put a motion on the table.
Yeah, Katrina, you need a motion, right? So I would say that to allocate that funding for VTC, that we approve utilizing the HAP interest funding and claim back the $92,000 unspent so far.
I second.
And do we have a second? Thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can I ask, where will it be used?
Aye.
Hold on, please. Any opposition? Please speak up. Say no.
I don't have an opposition, but can I abstain because VTC has some contracts with the housing authority, so I want to just abstain from this or recuse myself from this particular vote.
Of course you can. And so I believe motion passes, so we would be finished with... Phyllis, did you have something else?
I'm sorry, so we just voted to claw it back, and my question is, where would we get it? How would we get it spent? No.
It was the VTC project.
Yes. VTC has their Lightfighter Village project that went unfunded through HAP Round 4 competition. And this is a cute, nice little picture of what it's going to be for. So this is to expand their capacity by 70% at the Lightfighter Village.
Okay, and I believe that brings us to the end of the HHAP item. Do we have any public comment? I guess it's a little late for that, but just want to make sure I'm getting that out there. I don't believe we have any. Please let me know if we do. And then we're going to have to move back to the consent item on the agenda, item 4, the February and March Leadership Council meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? Any public comment on consent? Hearing none, can I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Anyone opposition, please say no. Hearing none. That would take us to item 5, Encampments Resolution Fund Grants. Staff?
Yeah. Yes. I asked this item to be put on the agenda. Supervisor Chris Lopez and I think also Supervisor Glenn Church, Roxanne had looped us all in, and also the mayors of Soledad and King City participated with Governor Gavin Newsom on a press conference last Thursday at 11:30 in the morning, along with numerous other counties and mayors who also got allocated. There was the next round of encampment resolution funding was the purpose of the press conference. It was almost $200 million, but Monterey County was able to secure just over $11 million going to grants that were collaborative between the county and King City and the county and the city of Soledad. So I thought it was a great amount of resources that we're drawing down from the state, but it is also, for me, was an example of how local governments and our providers are still continue to collaborate, that it's being successful in bringing those dollars in to our communities. So Roxanne, do you want to add to that? And then maybe the mayors.
Yeah, we're very excited about this. I also want to just lift up the Housing Authority of the County of Monterey and also Central California Alliance on Health, because if it wasn't for their partnership, I don't think that the King City project would have been funded. So for context, as you guys have all been acutely aware, the King City project, along with the other 3 home keys, are tied up in quite a bit of legal issues. There's a big lawsuit that's rolled out because the developer Shangri-La had not fulfilled their obligations to the contracts, and they had done some things that are questionable as to whether or not they were legal or not. So we're very happy to partner with the City of King. This one project, basically what's happening is we're saving the home key in King City. And it's because the Housing Authority is now going to be the new developer and the new owner of the project. They're local. They have more skin in the game. They want to get it done. We want to get it done. And CCAH provided a 50-50 match to our ERF grant. And then for Soledad, thank you so much. I don't think Mayor Velasquez is on the call today, but we're doing another project with them to address the encampment that's growing along the Soledad River. This is a 3-pronged approach. So we're really amplifying outreach in Soledad. We're going to have an interim shelter that is going to be built on city-owned property, and then we're also going to have motel vouchers as an alternative as well. So very excited, lots of work ahead of us, but thank you to all of our partners that made this happen, and of course the coalition, who always shows up to be an ally in these things.
Yeah, thank you. And it was 4.7 to the city of Soledad and 6.4 for King City. Mayor LaBarre?
Yes, thank you. One is we're extremely appreciative. And I think it highlights the fact the way you get progress, the way you move forward is strong partnerships. And I firmly believe what Monterey County is doing right now should be emulated by other COC districts, other counties, because our voice is much louder because the county was there ahead of the process. So we're so thankful for all the partnerships and everything the county did. Our community could not do this on our own. That's as simple as that. So thank you.
I also
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, go ahead, Roxanne.
I also just want to thank the Monterey County Board of Supervisors because they have supported all of my wild ideas. And I really brag about how much our supervisors support homelessness efforts. And I'm just very, very thankful for Supervisor Alejo as well, and Supervisor Lopez. I mean, all of them, really. Supervisor Askew, I think, is still on the call. If it wasn't for them, none of this would really even be able to move forward. I mean, they're the final decision makers, so thank you.
Congrats, sir.
All right, thank you for the great news, everyone. Great work. That's an information item. I was going to ask for if we have any public comment, please speak up, raise your hand. Seeing none on that, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 7, Continuum of Care NOFO Potential Release, May 2024. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, there has been suggested statements in our TA forum that HUD may be dropping their NOFO early. So I just want to put on your radar, this will be 2 months earlier than usual, so we might have to call for emergency or off-book meetings for further funding recommendations. So I just wanted to prepare you all for that. CHSP has hired focus strategies to assist with our 2024 NOFO, and we are compiling data for our year 3 Leave Me Home report and developing our year 4 action plan. So that's just a little update there. This is an action item that was just recently added. So we have 3 youth contracts that are currently at risk of being lost in our continuum, totaling $1.6 million if we do not find an operator. CHSP has a transitional housing youth contract that was negotiated with my predecessors, and being that CHSP is not a service provider, direct service provider, we have been connecting with Community Human Services to take on this contract, and we want to just put it out there that this is something that we're looking for approval for from this body to transfer from us to them. In addition to that, it has been also conversations taking place. I have not got full confirmation from BACS, but I have heard it from RTA, our joint TA provider home base, as well as other city and county members, that they will be leaving the continuum of care. And they have 2 projects totaling $1.4 million in youth funds. So I am seeking assistance from this amazing body and soliciting 2 or 3 of you all to help strategize on creating a short and fair process to redistribute BACS funding throughout our COC, as these contracts end December 2024 and have already been extended with HUD. So, any questions or discussion?
Do you have questions or comments on that?
Oh, we got to move quickly on this one then, Roxanne, for sure.
Yeah. So I am calling for a vote. We have some conflicted parties. It looks like Robin's not here, but so what I am asking for is, 1, for DHS to move over our transitional housing project to be operated by Community Human Services, and then solicit 3 of you, wonderful people here, to help strategize on the process of redistributing $1.4 million of youth funds from BACS to our COC.
Great. Do we have any, I guess you're asking for volunteers?
Yes. Volunteers and a vote. I mean, you guys could email me, text me, drop it in the chat, shout it out right now.
I see Roxanne has her hand raised. Do you want to say something first, Roxanne?
I just want to make a motion on the first item with transferring the funding, the transitional housing funding, to Community Human Services. They've been doing it for many, many years, and I think they're a reliable ally in this process. And then for the second items, I do not think it would be wise to do a full-fledged RFP, but maybe an RFQ. And then you could pull together some leadership council members to decide on where we're going to repurpose BACS's money.
Great. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Could we get the 3 added into the motion? That way Katrina knows who's actually going to work with her and roll up their sleeves and get this out ASAP.
Do we have 3 folks that would like to volunteer? And if we don't, I guess the other idea.
Those cats say she will. Roxanne, we just need 1 more.
Shaki, I'll be happy to volunteer.
Yes. All right.
Thank you, Kurt.
All right.
And Phyllis.
So we have a motion, we have volunteers. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second, Alejo.
All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank
Any
you.
opposed? Thank you. Go ahead, you were saying something, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I mean, we're over time, and I wanted to go into closed session. We have Keishla's City of Salinas thing here. I don't know how far, what you guys would like to do.
Yeah, do we have thoughts on what would be if we? What are the options here if we adjourn? What are the consequences of that?
I think, Colin. I think the governance updates and the governance committee update, the item number 9, those could all be perhaps pushed off till next meeting. But
yes.
Keishla had a timeline of her item that needs to be submitted. So maybe we could do that quickly and then go into closed session. And if we could keep that closed, we might be able to handle those last 2 items and table the rest till next meeting.
Okay, just so I'm clear, because so which item did you want to vote on number wise now?
It was the added item.
Oh, the added item. I apologize.
City of
Yes,
Salinas,
we do have to do that. The City of Salinas item. So yeah, let's do that quickly if we can. And so take it away. Presentation on the Salinas item. Keisha, you're muted.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Would you guys mind if I shared my screen on a PowerPoint presentation? I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I possibly can. Great. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Now bear with me while I try to figure it out. Okay, can you see my... No, it's sharing the wrong screen. Here we go. Okay, now can you see my screen? Great.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Like I said, I will try to go quickly. As you all may know, the City of Salinas is the administrative entity for the state ESG COC allocation. And so we recently released a NOFO for the application for the ESG funding. Let's see. We released the application on March 14th. Sorry, I apologize. We released the application on March 15th, and the applications were due on April 15th. This year, we did get a bit behind in the NOFO process, which is why we're pushing for the presentation today. So I do want to apologize in advance, as I was not able to give it to you in advance for agenda review. We did have a rating and ranking panel between April 19th to April 22nd. We had a total of 5 panelists. Each panelist serve in the county of Monterey, so whether they're a nonprofit agency, a county agency, so it was various individuals who participated on this rating and ranking panel. The timeline is that we would present the recommendations from this panel to you all today, and we're hoping that we can provide the approved recommendations to Housing and Land Use Committee on April 30th. And then the City of Salinas Community Development Department would need to present to City Council on May 14th to receive the approval to apply for the state ESG funding. We anticipate the state funding will be released June 2024 with the application deadline in July. We anticipate that the date for the awards to be announced in December, but everything is subject to change depending on the state's timeline. So I just want to go over at least up to December where we are. So the total state funding that we have for ESG is $233,938, which isn't a lot of money. At least 40% of the funding will need to be used for rapid rehousing, so that's about $93,000. And no more than 10% can be used for the homeless management information system, which is $23,000. And the City of Salinas, as a program administrator, will receive the allocation of $5,381. The eligible activities on this NOFA include emergency shelter. This includes essential services, shelter operations, street outreach services, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, and HMIS. These are the
And Keishla, if you could try to abbreviate and just sort of wrap up if you can as soon as the bigger points, because we do have people that are going to have to get off. Thank you.
Sure. So we received a total of 5 applicants. A total of $560,000 was requested. And our recommendation was to award 4 applicants, where we divided the rapid rehousing dollars to meet the 40% threshold required by state ESG. And then the other 2 applicants were street outreach providers, so no one was awarded the full ask because of the small pot of funding. And so what the request is approval to move forward these recommendations as part of the state ESG application.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'm sorry.
Oh, was there something else, Keishla?
No, it was
we're really cutting short
we'll
here.
get straight to the point. There you go.
All right. Tim Heaven, do you have a comment, brief comment?
I did have a brief comment, and just I want to make a note of this. One of the things I've been hearing about one of the projects that City of Salinas is taking over at the Steinbach Lodge is that you guys aren't allowing visitors there, and so I would kind of urge City of Salinas to kind of relook at those type of implementations and no visitor policies for these projects.
Great. Anything else? Do we have public comment? Not seeing any public comment. Okay, we have a first, and I believe we have a second as well. Did I hear a second? Can I please have a second?
I'll second. This is Roxanne.
Thank you, Roxanne. And for everybody, this is that emergency solutions grants. It used to be administered by the county, but the city of Salinas several years ago took this on, and so they put in all this effort. So I want to support them and continue to administer this. And thank you, Keishla, for all your work. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you so much.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. Motion passes. So that would bring us to, we're going to push the other couple items to the following meeting. We would be adjourning our regular agenda, and we'd be heading into closed session. Do we have any public comment before we head into closed session? Seeing none, we're adjourned from our regular agenda, and we'll be heading into closed session. So members of the public would have to depart the Zoom call.
And for my team, you guys could take the rest of the day off now.